In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about n8n's new feature, Tables. Now, why is Tables important? Tables is an important feature because you no longer need to make requests to Google Sheets or Airtable to access or store information. You now can store all that data within n8n's native tools node. Now I'm going to show you in 4 easy steps how you can get started with tables today. 1. Where can you find them within n8n? 2. How to set one up. 3. How do you put data in them? And 4. How do you connect them to your agents and smart workflows? So to get started with tables, simply navigate over to your workspace and you're going to see 4 tabs now. Workflows, credentials, executions, and the new tab, data tables. You can see it's still in beta mode, so I expect more features to roll out over the next couple weeks and months. But to get started, click this orange arrow here and click Create Data Table. Next, we'll give our data table a new name. We'll call this New Table, Creative. And you'll notice here, this is inside the table now, and there's 3 columns, ID, created at, and updated at. These 3 columns are native and pre-populated for n8n. You cannot delete them or modify them, but you can add your own. So let's say we wanted to build a database for collecting name, phone number, email. We'd add name, phone number. What we're doing here is just adding new columns. And let's add email. And before I click off, I'm going to show you, you can't put spaces in between column names. So if you want to put 2 words, I do like company email or email company, just to further clarify what these columns are. And then last thing is type. You have string, number, Boolean, and date type. So string is just regular letters, characters. A number is just for numerical values. Boolean is true or false. And date time is, as you expected, date. We're going to keep all these strings for now, just for the sake of the example. And we've set up our columns. Next thing we want to do is we're going to manually add some rows. So here you can see this little plus button here. Click plus, and we can put our first name. Let's put John. Let's put phone number. I'm not going to put my real one. And then let's put in email, john@gmail.com. Pretty cool email. I wish I had something that simple. And you'll see really quickly the pre-populated columns created at and updated at were already pre-populated. And then the ID here was also populated. Honestly, you can ignore these columns. I really just focus on the columns I add. Now, you're probably wondering, this is pretty manual if I want to add a bunch of different values. So we're going to pop into our workflow, and I'm going to show you how you can add Google Sheets tables into n8n's tables. So taking all those values from Google Sheets and putting them in n8n in just a couple seconds. So I'm going to click out of here and go to our Google Sheets. So I have the video here. I've just set up a table with just some basic CRM information. This is all dummy data, so none of this is real, but it's basically a project tracker table where we have client name, the company of the client, where we got the lead stage. So have we delivered the project? Did we lose the project? Are we still in the negotiation qualification phase? Who is the project planner? Who's basically managing the project? The client's email, and I just kept these really simple. How much is the deal worth? And then we have contact date. So when did the deal start, or when was it closed? And then lastly, I have status. So if we won the project, we were paid. If we lost the project, we didn't make any money. And if it's still pending, it's still TBD. So we're going to take all these data points and we're going to put this in an n8n table. So I'm going to pop into the workflow here. And we're going to start with this first workflow. This is a really simple one just to show you how quickly you can load data into n8n. So I'm going to manually run this. And this is going to basically take data from our Google Sheet that I just showed you and put this into a table I created, showing you basically the same way that I showed you how to create the first table. So I'm going to click Execute Workflow, and you can see really quickly this is going to happen in just a couple seconds. So we got 11 items out of Google Sheets, and we got 11 items into the table. So I'm going to pop into here and just show you how this worked. So if I open this up, you can see this is connected to my credentials. I'm going within a sheet in the document, specifically just a sheet in the document. This is the document lead list, and then this is the tab. I didn't really name it anything, so it's called Sheet 1. So here you can see it's pulled out all the records from the table. And you can really honestly ignore these IDs, but these row numbers just correspond to the Google Sheet row numbers. So 2 all the way to 12. And you can see this is all the information. And then I'm going to pop to the n8n node, a table, and you're going to really quickly see that I inserted all the rows we got from Google Sheets into the n8n table. So all I'm doing is using this action called insert rows. This is the table I created, leads example for this video, and then I manually mapped the names of the Google Sheets, so these column names, to specific columns I created in the database. So name goes with name for the Google Sheet, company goes with company, source with source, etc. So here you can see then it's pre-populated the 3 dummy columns that n8n always has, so created at or updated at, but the rest of the information is the information from the Google Sheet word for word. So you don't need to worry about data loss. If you don't want to include all the values from a specific source when you're transferring to n8n, you can also leave those off as well. So here in just like 5 seconds, we loaded all our data into a table. So next, I'm going to show you once we link or how we can access this data from a table directly and how we can send that information to an agent. So here I'm going to grab this chat trigger. I'm going to move it over to this workflow here and connect it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a company name that I know is in the database. The tool here, get deal info, it's basically just get row. It's going to do a lookup on company name for the company I put in the chat, and it's going to pull the record for it, and it's going to send it to the agent, and it's basically just going to summarize the deal. So it's going to say, I'm going to pull Orion Motors. It's going to basically say it's assigned to Michael, it's been delivered, the deal value was $3,200, and the status was 1. So before I do that, I think I have a duplicate of the values because I did this twice. So one thing I forgot to show you is you can delete all the records in a table really quickly with one button. So you can select this check mark here. This selects all the rows. If you only want to delete a couple rows, you can do that as well, but I'm going to delete everything, rerun the workflow, and show you how we can just access all the information now. So you can see there's 20 records. There should be just 10, or there should be just 11. So here, deleted all the data, execute workflow. So it's going to run this workflow again. I'm going to go back in here, refresh this information. You're going to see it's re-put in all the data. So you can do this as many times as you want. If you mess up, like in my case, I duplicated all the data, you can delete it out really quickly and then add it back in. So let's go back to this example now here, and I'm basically just going to put in the chat Orion Motors. And we're going to see it should be assigned to Michael. It should be a deal that was worth $3,200. It was on September 28th. So I'm hoping it gives us all this information, or at least a nice little summary of this information. So here you can see it used its agent brain to kind of summarize the information, but this is just not showing the agent going into the table. This is just me showing how you can do a lookup within the table just with specific information and then pass that to an agent. It's because you're not always going to need an agent to pull all the data from a table. So here, let's look at what it returned back. So Orion Motors, led by David Lee, recently wrapped up a project valued at $3,200. The deal was successfully delivered, and Michael has been managing the relationship from start to finish. It didn't tell me when it was, but I think that's just because I don't have a really great prompt in here. But let's click into the agent and just see what I asked it to do. So here you can see I have a user message, and this is basically just passing all the client information. So here you can see client's direct contact name, client email, client company, deal value, date of deal. So it has all this information. I also gave it today's date. So if it wants to do a relationship, or if it wants to basically say, hey, this deal was closed 2-3 weeks ago, it knows today's date, so it can do a reference off of date of the deal here versus today's date. So I'm going to also show the system message, and this is basically the prompt for the agent. It's a really simple one, so that's why it's not the best summary, but you're a friendly professional AI project assistant. Your job is to give short, engaging summaries about the client and the project we're working on for them, and it's asking for 4 specific things. So here you can see I didn't specifically specify like they need to return a date back. So if I did, tell me when the project was closed, was 1. So if I rerun this, I'm going to show you real quick. Should pull that data again, but this time include the date. So here I'm looking for which was successfully delivered by mid-October. David Lee is the main contact on their side. Again, it's not pulling in the exact date I wanted. So let's see, Orion Motors, September. So I don't want that date. I want the specific date the project wrapped up. So let's go back into this agent and let's basically specify what this is. So date, one date of deal. So let's click save and let's run it again so you can see how it works. So now it's going to say we close this deal on September 28th, 2025. So again, if you aren't liking summaries or outputs of an agent, this is a great example of how you can just tweak the prompt a little bit to get exactly what you want. But I hope this gives you a really good example on how you can query the table without using an agent, pull that information into an agent, and then do something with it. The third example we're going to go through now is basically just showing if I were to link a bunch of different ways to access this table to an agent, I get now dynamically ask this agent a bunch of questions. So I'm going to disconnect this chat again, and I'm going to move it over to this bigger, more powerful agent. Now, this agent is basically an agent that's accessing the same table, but it's looking up the table in 3 different ways. So it can do a client name match to the table, so it can pull all records matching a specific client name, like we were just doing with Orion Motors. It can do a project status match, so it can tell me deals that are won, pending, or closed, or lost. And then it can also do a date match. So if I wanted to pull all the projects we won in September, it can give me a summary of that. So I'm going to do a couple of those. How many projects have we done for Orion Motors? That database shows 2, so we have 1 here and we have 1 here. So I'm expecting it to show 2 and then give me the details of the project. So what I expect it to do is it's going to use its brain here. It's going to store the request in its memory, and it may or may not use the calculator if it's going to add all the information together saying, hey, we delivered like $6,000 or $5,000 worth of value to the client. So let's click send here, and you'll see this agent work really quickly. Went into the memory. It did a client name match because I only gave it the client name, and then it's using its brain to think a little bit. It didn't calculate anything. So here you can see you have 2 projects for Orion Motors. This is the breakdown. Both projects have status 1. Now we can say how much were we paid for Orion Motors for all projects. Here, I'm hoping it's using its calculator to add all the data together if it needs that tool, but and here we go, here it did. So here we can see it, the input of the calculator tool. So Orion Motors paid a total of $4,200, $1,000 for 1 project, and $3,200 for 1 project. Let's double check this information is correct. So I go into my table here. I can see this first Orion Motors project was $3,200, and this last one was $1,000, totaling $4,200. So this is one great way to show how we can do a client name match, or the agent can do a search based off just client name. But let's say I want to give it a more complicated search. Tell me all the projects we were paid for in September. What I'm hoping this does is just sum all the projects together that we were actually paid for. So status is 1, and we're gonna validate that in the table just to make sure it did that. So here you can see did a date name match this time, used its calculator tool, and now it's thinking it's probably summarizing all the information together. So we totaled $16,500 for September 2025. These are all the projects we were paid for, 2 of which were Orion Motors, which we saw in the previous request. And then it's giving me its math breakdown. I specifically asked this in the prompt so we could see what it's doing. But let's validate that this is correct. So Orion Motors, Alpha Health, Crest, and Orion Motors again. So which projects have we won in September? These, this, and that's it. So 4 projects, Orion Motors, Crest, and Alpha Health. And if we summed all their values together, you can see here in Google Sheets, $16,500. So the agent correctly summed all the information together, pulled all the clients that we were paid that paid in September, and then it basically gave me a little summary of who they were. So if you start to think about this, this is pretty impressive. If you hook this up to your own sales table and you're an executive, you no longer need to look at like charts or dashboards. You could quickly chat with an agent to give you some quick summaries on how the business is going. I'm going to do one more. How many projects did we win? How many projects were won in 2025? Let's just do how many projects were won. Keep it broad. I'm hoping it uses the project status match, which is why I didn't give it a year. Otherwise, it was probably going to go back into the date match. So here, let's see, it's summing all together. We've done 5. So let's validate this, but 4 were in September, like we saw, and 1 was in October. So Sarah Johnson's company, David Lee Orion Motors, Alpha Health, Crest Interiors, and Orion Motors. So let's validate this one more time. Here you can see 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It's a count of 5. So you can see really quickly we built a really powerful agent that can access sales data, access your CRM, your project statuses, give you really nice, impactful summaries, and then package all that out for you within just a couple seconds. Now that we saw this agent work, let's look into how we built this agent and the prompt that's driving all these queries. So here you can see it's a pretty simple agent. We have a chat trigger node just to kind of field requests and send them to the agent. And then we have a pretty detailed or semi-detailed system message, basically the agent prompt. Basically, you're a helpful financial analyst. You have access to a table with project sales information. It's giving all the information on the tools it needs to route. So I'm telling it how to use the date match, how to use the project status match or the client name match. All of this can be customized based off the table you're trying to access, how to output the results, and I have some specific stuff for this video, like when outputting any calculations, break it down in numbers, what you added together or subtracted. I also gave it some definitions on how to understand different status names. So won, lost, basically it can just tell what are the definitions here. And then here's an example calculation. When calculating deals won or lost or pending, use the calculate tool to sum all the projects with that status. So here you can see it's a very simple prompt to field these requests from the chat. But if you like this video, give us a like and subscribe. This is a new channel here where we're trying to give a lot of free information on AI agents and how you can use them and build them yourself. So if you want to access any templates that we walk through here in the video, join us on our school community. We're about 80 people strong and growing more than ever. We also have a few thousand people subscribed to our newsletter where bi-weekly we talk about AI agent news, prompts, tools, and new agents that we built this week. Thank you for watching.